So today I'm gonna do my August wrap-up. I read about 16 books, including one audiobook that I don't physically own, so I'll remember to do that. I might start with that one just to not forget it. And overall, I would say I had a pretty good reading month. I did spend all of my time reading, which explains how I read this many books. So yes, I didn't craft as much. Most of my hobbies, I kind of put them on the side and decided to read more instead, which it's not the best, I would say. It's not something I want to continue. So I am pretty happy with this 16 books that I read, but probably for the next few months I'll try to balance it with other things that I love to do. So yes, I'm gonna try to keep it short and sweet. I don't want this video to be too long. It is my first wrap-up video, so hopefully I can do a good job, and like let me know in the comments if you want to see more of something or less of something, and I'll try to adjust. But yes, here we go. So the first book I'm going to talk to you about is Thirst by Marina Yuszczuk. I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm not sure. I'll try to put up an image here. It's a very fun cover, I really enjoy it. And I give it a 3, maybe a 3.5, I don't remember. Because it was fun. Like, I would recommend if you want a vampire story, like if that's what you like. I think especially now that like fall is coming and everything, it could be a fun read. But yes, it wasn't my favorite. I think it's very much separated. So we have the first part, which is the vampire story, and I think it's pretty in keep with all the other vampire stories I've read so far. And I'm not talking about Twilight or anything, but I'll put in the section, like in the lore section, maybe books that remind me of it. But truly, it's like classic. It's good, it's dark, all the things that I like, but nothing too crazy, nothing too out there. So it was a fun read, but nothing more. And then the second part, I feel like it was a lot going on. Like, I wish I had read more, or like that it was divided, or that it took more place. I don't know. It was separated, and I feel like they both lacked something, like, or that could have been added more to it for me to enjoy it more. The second part, you follow this woman, which I have to say the story wasn't memorable enough for me to even remember what the story was about. I think I remember her struggling. I think it was with her mother's death. You do have the aspect of grief, which I thought was interesting. And I think why I lowered it also is because this was sold to me as like a sapphic vampire story. And while it is true, I wouldn't say it's an actual sapphic vampire story, in the sense that there's not a lot of that. There's not a lot of romance, there's not a lot of a relationship aspect for it to be the main theme. I think it's mostly you follow that character as a vampire and how she grieves maybe her past life, and then this other character that's grieving the death of a family member and how she's dealing with it. And I'm pretty sure there was other things happening, but it's been a while. Like, I read it I think at the beginning of the month of August, so it really couldn't say that I remember. And while I enjoyed the experience of it, I wouldn't say that it's the most memorable vampire story. But I would still recommend you picking it up at the library if you want to like read more about her. I enjoyed her writing enough that I would definitely pick up another book by her. But yes, that one was okay. It was enjoyable. It was fun. The next book is Sera Selena by Mayra Santos-Febres. This, by the way, is very random. There is no logic to how I'm reviewing. I think I'll try to find for next month a better way to talk about these books, but right now it's gonna be, I have my piles of books and I'm just gonna go through them in whatever order I get to them. So yes, Sera Selena. In this one, you see I tabbed a lot. I read this for Women in Translation Month, so, as I did for Thirst. And this one was also a 3.5, but mostly I have to say what suffered from this actually might be the translation. So I think the story in itself was good. It was a pretty hard story to read at times. I feel like I didn't expect it to be this dark or dramatic. So you follow this character. I'm gonna find her name. So you follow these two characters actually. So you follow Selena, as he's a young boy in the streets of Puerto Rico, and you kind of follow him through all his hardships. And then the point where the story begins, before we get all this background, is actually when he meets Miss Martha Divine, and which is, you know, who takes her under her wing. So she becomes basically her drag mother, and then teaches him all the ways of the business. You know, she's like a very successful businesswoman, I would say. Like, she has her own club, she has the drag queens she you know, like, employs for like different shows and everything. And when she met Selena, he had a beautiful voice. It's basically the main storyline, I would say, how they go about their business. And then Miss Martha Divine is like very ambitious, so she tries to get the show to Santo Domingo, to like another city and everything. And there is a part, and there's like other characters that you see a bit their background, and I think it has a big political layer. Some of the translated terms and turns of phrases and everything, it just took me out of the story too often, that at some point it felt heavy to read, and it felt a bit of a chore to read, which is unfortunate because I do like the story enough, and I do have other books from her. I'm wondering if it's the same translator. Hopefully not, but maybe. So yeah, I would definitely still read more from that author. It was 3.5, I think, for me. The next book I read, and actually I read it through audiobook, is The White Window by Lemony Snicket. So I never really read these as a kid. I think I read the first one when I was a lot younger, but not too young either. And it felt daunting to read like 14 books, a 14 book series at the time. And it still does, but a lot less, especially considering they're so short. And I did find them in audiobooks in my library, so I'm going through them. I try to read 1 or 2 per month. So last month I read the second one, this month I listened to the third one, and I kind of want to keep going. Like, this is really fun. I'm wondering how it sustains for 12 books, honestly. Not because I don't think Lemony Snicket is not original. I'm sure he'll find a way for the Baudelaire to get into the situation and out of them. But yeah, it takes him 14 books to help the kids. I don't know. So yeah, it's a little weird. So yeah, it's I'm curious. I'm curious to see how we sustain it for so many books. But yeah, it was fun. It was a fun read. I don't know, 4, because it was really fun. Like, I don't know how to rate it. It's like, I'm not the target audience. I feel like I was, as a young teen, I would have loved it. So I'm very confident to give it a 4, and thinking other people would too. The next one is The Incendiaries by Kwon. This is my first Kwon, and I was really excited. I had heard very many good reviews from this author, so I was really excited to read it. And I have to say, this is more of a 3.5. Maybe that's gonna be my theme. Maybe I go to like, maybe my last one will be my 5-star. But anyways, so yeah, it was another 3.5. The writing was good. I really enjoyed the writing. But I felt a bit meh about the story. So you follow this couple, Phoebe and Will, and you see how the relationship starts to be a little strained. Actually, you see at the beginning how they met and everything, how he kind of lied a little bit because he's more of like a upper middle class kind of guy that still needs to work. And then you see her, that's like, she's rich enough that that's not even a thought in her head, that she needs to work for money to pay like for food or her expenses or whatever. So there is this difference between them and how they see life. And I think that's the setting, but it's not about that. Like, I feel like it's not even about their couple. It's not even about this dynamic with money and everything. It is brought up a lot, like, to remind you of it, but it becomes more about how cults and religion can play a big part in your life, and how that could affect your relationship with someone who doesn't agree or who's just not in the same journey as you. So in this case, I feel like the big theme you have here is grief. So they both have lost a member of their families, her more recently. And so she gets approached by this man that says, you know, he's friends with her father, and that, you know, he has this cult, like, but he doesn't say cult obviously, but he has this group of people that believe in I don't know what, and that, you know, they could help her get through this, like oh, he sees her, she feels bad, or she doesn't feel like she doesn't look like she's thriving, so he can help. And then of course Will is there seeing it happen, and then kind of being confronted, because he used to be very religious too before the death. I think it was his father. I'm not completely, or his mother, I think. So I'm not completely sure who, but he's kind of confronted with this idea that he left religion because of what happened, and then now he sees that his girlfriend is actually being brought in by a religious group, and then he's kind of torn, you know, because it was still an important part of his past, but also he sees that, well, it kind of looks like a cult. So yeah, you have all of this going on, and yeah, I mean, it was fun. Like, I read a couple of cult books that I thought were interesting, and I feel like that aspect was very interesting, how they can kind of being brought into it without realizing it's a cult, but also even when they realize it is, then they still continue. So for that part, it was really interesting. But I feel like it's sad, and I remember reading that, like, a fractured love story, and well, I feel like more than a love story, it explores more the themes of grief and religion, and even maybe those social clashes that you have with, like, people being more wealthy or not, and how it connects and disconnects on some levels in a relationship. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like I wouldn't sell this as a love story, you know. I wouldn't recommend it to you as a love story. I would recommend it to you if those themes appeal to you. So yeah, a 3.5. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the writing. I would definitely read more of Kwon. Next, we have Girls Burn Briar by Shobha Rao. This is kind of a chunkier book than I thought it would be, and because it had such a hard scenes to read, it honestly took me a moment to read, because I needed to, like, pause, take a breath, and then continue. Which I would say for that, maybe look into the trigger warnings, because some scenes were slightly more graphic than I usually am comfortable with, and I wasn't expecting it, because to me this was very literary fiction, so I wasn't expecting something awful or horrible to read. But yes, I should have known. Like, it isn't my fault. Like, I should have maybe looked more into it. And yeah, actually, I thought this was a very interesting story. This follows Purnima and Savita in their village. So these girls, you kind of see them individually as they're living their lives. You know, they have the struggles, whether it's money and food and, like, people passing away, and kind of living through with this traditional way of life, which is you need to, of course, get married in a very respectable family. You need to be a very respectable woman or girl at this point, because they were pretty young when the book begins. Like maybe 15? I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't, they were pretty young. So yeah, you need to be this respectable girl, find a family, get married, and then through that, you can provide for your family. Like that's almost the main goal of a girl in India for like this specific village, is that you obviously need to get married, and you know, that's what makes your family proud. And like pride is such a big thing also, and image and everything. And in this case, so Purnima, Purnima and Savita are both, I would say, poor, but Savita maybe more so. Like even in that, you know, like even that, there's like lower and middle and like better poor that you could be. So that was interesting, but you know, like I come from a culture that's very judgmental, so I understand completely the judgment of that. They meet because Savita starts working for Purnima's father, so she's like a great seamstress, works super well, super fast, and so that's how she provides money for her family and like her brothers. And then they end up spending a lot of time together, being super close, super good friends, and Savita brings in this kind of hope and happiness to Purnima, which she kind of had lost because her mother passed away not too long ago. So you can kind of see how they like hold on to each other, you know, in this like very harsh environment, and like everyone seeing them as nothing more than that, and not wanting them to be necessarily happy. You see them really hold on to each other for that happiness, and then because of something they get separated, and so Savita leaves. And yes, that's as far as I'm gonna go. I think that's basically the synopsis. So it was very interesting to see that. It was a hard book to read, I have to say, because they go through a lot of hardships. And I know it's meant to be kind of still hopeful and like resilient. I feel like that's the big takeaway from this, is how resilient women can be even through all the hardships, even though basically the world is against you sometimes because of either cultural reasons or just society, or and I'm talking about like both, right? Like I know the first half is in India and the second is more America, or at least there's a mix, and it's like in both those countries you can see that. So I know there was a slight white savior moment that I'm like, I was kind of okay, sure, that I was, yeah, it wasn't too much, so I could accept it. It wasn't too cringe, but yeah, I thought it was interesting. I would recommend it, but yes, just look at the trigger warnings. It's just not for everyone, and honestly, had I known before, I may not have read it. But yes, I'm glad I read it anyway. Like I love Rao's writing, so I think this is her debut, so I'm wondering if she published anything since, but if she did, I'd be interested in reading from her. Next book is 7 Empty Houses by Samanta Schweblin. So this is a short story collection. Samanta Schweblin is an author. I also read her for Woman in Translation Month. This is translated from Spanish by Megan McDowell. I have to say it's not my favorite of her stories. Like I love Samanta Schweblin. I think I read almost all her books now. I think the only one I have left is Mouthful of Birds. I think this is the last one, which I think I own, and I might read it this next month. But yeah, this one was like okay. I wouldn't start with this. Like if you're really into Samanta Schweblin, don't start with this one. I think this is more of, if you already love her writing, you would enjoy this short stories, because even though they weren't really memorable for me, and even though some of them felt a bit like a dud because they felt like, what was the point? Like it didn't make me feel anything. It was just okay, and it was just good writing, but it didn't get to a point. I still enjoyed her writing, and like it's an author I love, so I would still read more about her. Like this is not stopping me from reading anything more from her. But yeah, this I think was more of a 2.53 because Goodreads doesn't do 0.5s. I think I would round it up to a 3, but don't start with this one. Like that's my only advice on this. Next book is Bunny by Mona Awad. For this one actually, and Arbor Reality, I won't do a thorough review just because I have another video coming. But yes, this was 3.5 for me, and this was like 4.5, maybe 5 stars. So these are gonna be quick just because you'll know more about it on another video. Then the next one is The Lonely Hearts Hotel by Heather O'Neill. This is another, yeah, this is another 3 stars. I'm not harsh, I promise. I don't rate books that harshly in general. It's just I felt like I had a lot of mid reads this month, and you'll know why. I mean, you know why for the other ones, you'll know why for this one. So this one, you follow these two orphans. I even forgot their names, although they're very memorable, I would have to say. Pierrot and Rose. So you follow Pierrot and Rose from infancy, basically, like they're babies in the orphanage, and then you follow them as they grow up, as they leave the orphanage, and all of that. So this is said as a circus and love story, a little bit like the Night Circus, and I would say don't go into this imagining the Night Circus, because it's not. I think you'd be disappointed. Although I read the Night Circus, I want to say years ago, like maybe more than 5, and I can barely remember the story. I have to say this wasn't the same vibe. So just on that alone, I don't think it's the same book. I wouldn't compare it. I enjoy Heather O'Neill's writing. Like, one of my favorites of last year was When We Lost Our Heads by her, and like top like 5 stars basically for me. Like, I just really enjoyed it. Had it at the library, bought a copy just to own it because I really enjoyed it. Like, I love those unhinged female friendship. But this one, and it's not about the writing was good. I had issues with this book that I couldn't get past it, and that was the main issue. So one of my, like, without spoiling, but like, because it's at the very beginning, but one of my issues is that something very traumatic happens to one of the characters, and it's written in a way that's very uncomfortable, because it's almost like it's because it happens to the character when they're children. It's almost just too on the nose, and then while it's brought back a few times, it's never addressed in a way that I found appropriate. And it's very, I don't know, it's like, I can understand that the traumatic event is added for this character, maybe, but I don't understand why they couldn't address it in a more meaningful way at all. Like, I would say at all, in my opinion. And yes, it's like in 1940s, I think, and like in 1914 and onwards. And yeah, I guess there wasn't this Me Too era happening, and maybe we weren't that aware that, you know, sexual assault was sexual assault, but even then, I don't know. It was weird. It was uncomfortable. And honestly, my second disappointment was that the circus part just happens very late in the book. So if I went in going for that, then I'd be kind of disappointed in the first part, like half of the book. And I didn't go with that much expectation about it, so I could just go along for the ride, you know, and just see how those two people, like kids, teenager and adults, kind of grow into this society, which is Montreal, which I loved. I loved the idea of a 1914 book set in Montreal, and I could picture it really well. So again, it's not the writing, it's just, I wouldn't even know how to recommend this book because it's so uncomfortable and it's very sexual as they're young. So I wouldn't even know if you're okay with that kind of storytelling. It kind of fizzled out for me too towards the end, and it kind of wanted to be like a mystery, and I had a bit of suspense towards the end, but I don't know. It was okay. Again, I have lots of Heather O'Neill's to read, and I would still read it because I love her writing, and like she has a new book coming out. I will also read that. But this one in particular, I don't know if I would recommend it, and if yes, we'd have to have a long discussion about what you're okay with reading or not. So there's that. My next book is Conviction by Denise Mina. Another 3-star. I don't know. I buy this book thinking I'll enjoy them, you know? So I get really excited, and not in a high expectations way, just in a, I'm very excited to know the story. And then honestly, I'm a little bummed that most of this these were like 3.5, 3 stars. Like this is a 3-star for me. But they're good books. They're just not great books that I expect them to be. And in this case, although I enjoyed the writing, I think what really took me out was it was a little too popcorn, silly, glass onion type of book, if you get it. It's not that it's bad, it's just that I wasn't expecting. Like if I had gone into this book thinking glass onion, knives out kind of type of story, then you know, maybe I would have been like, actually this is a 4-star because this is exactly what it delivers. But because I was just expecting your normal thriller, it kind of took me out because of the silly characters, the weird dialogues, the main character being, I would say, an unreliable character at moments. It's a little too unbelievable for me, and I had to suspend too much of disbelief to go with it. And I finished it, you know, I finished it on audiobook because it was just easier for me. I couldn't just physically sit down and read this. Actually, this might be more at 2.5 the more I talk about it. But yeah, I mean, it was okay. Like, I would not recommend it. I don't know how it's a Reese's book club pick, but whatever. But yes, it's go with it if you want like a silly mystery thriller that takes you around the world, and if you love crime podcasts, even better. You know, that's like the cherry on top. But honestly, that's the way to go. That's how I would recommend this book. And I think you might enjoy it if you go with that expectations. So, but for me, I had different expectations, you know, kind of my fault, not the author's fault. So yeah, just okay. The next book I read is The Quaker by Heather Tucker. This one I actually enjoyed a lot more. This is more of a 4-star for me. Enjoy is a weird word because actually it's another one of those traumatic books. More in the sense that you follow this little girl, Ari, is it? Yeah, Ari. And how she kind of deals with the tumultuous family life that she has. Her mother is, you know, like an addict, and then her father is not really in the picture, but she has a caring stepfather, and like it's very nuanced. Like it's not just this kid that's in a terrible home and how the teachers and the people around them help. It has more nuance in the sense that yes, the mom is like that, but she does have some good teachers that help and some that don't. She has friends, but some like hate her just because she's a very precocious kid also. It made me think of The Elegance of the Hedgehog, which has this little girl character that is also very precocious in the way she speaks and the way she thinks, and even though there was some moments where it was too adult-like for like how old she was, that took me back a little. But in general, I think like because she has to grow up so fast because of what's happening around her, I could just accept that, you know, she was just that kind of precocious little kid. And yeah, and she does have like family support, so it's not a tragic book in the sense that the world is against her or anything. It's more of a, I want to say, more realistic depiction of a kid having a mother that is in trouble, like that can't take care of her or give her any love or support, and kind of how she deals with it. It has a Matilda vibe to a little bit, not in the sense that she doesn't have any powers. This is not that kind of book, but she does have an imaginary friend that kind of helps her get through these moments, to have like a confidant to like really process things through. And yeah, honestly, great writing. I know there's a sequel, so I may read the sequel soon or not. I'm not very good at following up on series, but this has a sequel that I may read soon. So yeah, I would recommend it if you're looking for a good book with those themes, and if you're looking for a Canadian author. Next, we have Stillborn by Guadalupe Nettel. This is another 4-star for me. I really enjoyed this. I actually started this on audiobook because I was like, it's like 5 hours. I can like that in a day. But I stopped at the first chapter because I just knew I wanted to tap this. And I did. I really enjoyed this. I love the writing. This is also for Women's in Translation Month. This was translated by Rosalind Harvey. You follow these different women and kind of how they deal with motherhood, whether it's the choice of it, whether it's, you know, the pregnancy phase and then the having the child and how you deal with it and all of that. It's all about these different stages of motherhood. And I just thought it was so interesting because it's not, I feel like those, sometimes the theme can either be taken as two extremes. So either it's shame on you for not wanting to be a mom, and the other extreme is like, ew, how you choose to be a mom? Like, how could you choose that? And I feel like those two extremes are extremes. Like, I feel like there's the nuance and the point of having the choice is to have the choice without being judged about it. And I think this is a beautiful written book that actually does not judge all these women for all the choices they've done, and is more caring about these women. Like, it's not about the judging of these characters, but the caring and understanding of where they're coming from, why they do those choices. Like, the main character we follow actually decides that she never wants to be a mother. She just doesn't want to have kids. Gets the whole operation for it very early, and like, she's very satisfied with it. And honestly, I think it's good. Like, there's no debate about it. There's no constant, there's not this depiction of her being sad about it or like extremely happy. It's just, at that moment, it was the good decision, and she's satisfied with the decision right now, and like, she lives with that, and it's okay, you know, it's just accepted. And she also has the friend who she does decide to have a kid, and then her process with it. And then you have her neighbor who has a kid, like, I think he might be like 8, and how she's having a hard time with it because of circumstances in her life, and then they go more into it. And I just thought it was beautifully written. I would completely read another book by Guadalupe Nettel. I tapped it a lot. I took a lot out of this, and it packs so much in such a short book. It was beautiful, beautifully written too. So would highly recommend this one. Next one, which I should have talked before because this is my worst book of the year and so far. And I'm sorry for people who like it, and it's okay. You're allowed to like it. I'm allowed to hate it, and we're good. Everything is okay. This is a safe space. You can enjoy it, and I won't judge you, and don't judge me for absolutely hating it. So it's Homesick for Another World by Ottessa Moshfegh. This is a short story collection. Maybe it's the format. I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe her short story are just not for me. I just hated it. Like, obviously I'm not gonna go in detail for each story. It's just every other story I either would not care about, and then there was the ones that just made me absolutely uncomfortable because you were often enough in the head of these sleazy men and how sleazy they were. And yeah, I don't like that. I didn't enjoy being in the head of these men. I took nothing out of this. I barely remember it. I feel like my brain is protecting me from this book because it just sometimes made me feel so uncomfortable. I want to say a couple of stories were just okay. So yes, overall, like, I'm glad this is an old library. I got this from like a library sale, so I'm glad I only paid $2 for it because I would have been sad to pay more. It's a no for me. I might read other things from her. I read La Bona from her, and that one was better. Like, it was icky and weird and uncomfortable. It had a point, you know, and it had a story. And this felt like it was just uncomfortable to be uncomfortable, and it was just a no. Like, I could not recommend this. And if you like it, it's okay, but I cannot, in good conscience, recommend you this short story collection. There are so many good ones out there, but just this is not it. Next is Botanica Drama by Thom. And this is a graphic novel that has little to no words, but that is just amazing. I don't know if it's gonna zoom in, probably not. I just love this graphic novel so much, and I think this is the kind of graphic novel that transcends language. This you can see the feelings, you can see what's happening, you can understand what's happening, and honestly you could pick it up whether you don't speak English, French, Spanish, whatever languages. Like, I could have speak none of it and I would have understood and enjoyed this graphic novel completely for what it is. So yeah, I would highly recommend you picking it up if you want like a local Montreal graphic novelist to check out. I think he's done a few more, but yes, this is just the first one I read from him, and highly recommend this. We'll definitely pick up more from him. The last one, my favorite of the month, and my surprise actually from the month, is Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. This is a debut novel. This is a debut novel, and it's crazy that it's a debut. I loved it. I have nothing bad to say about it. The mix of relationships and courtroom drama and mystery, the balance is just perfect. Absolutely loved it. And you have all these points of views, and it just works. Like, they're just the right amount at the right moments, whether it's like to add suspense, and like she just worked with it so well. I don't want to give too much away, just highly recommend it. Please pick it up. So you have this family that moves to the US from Korea, and they open up their business, which is Miracle Submarine, and it has like therapeutic benefits. It's, you know, it's research and everything, but it's very niche, and it works for different types of diseases kids might have or problems they might have. So they open that, and then because this is a process, you know that something bad happened. That's what I'm gonna say, something bad happened, and through the story you find out what happened. You find out through also the process who is being accused of what, and then everyone's point of view, and it really depicts how everyone is living in their own little bubble, because of course they all feel guilty for different reasons, and you don't know them until the very end. Like, while the story goes, you kind of unravel why every character, for some reason or something they did, said, thought, did in the past, they feel bad about and like guilty about. And it was just so interesting. Yeah, I don't want to give anything away, so I'm gonna stop the review there and just not say anything more. Just the themes explored with this of, again, like family, fatherhood, motherhood, like couple relationships, and just honestly I think the main one is like being a mother and how much you give for your kids. And specifically you see families that have kids with different kind of diagnosis, whether from autism or like physical disabilities and etc. So you have like a variety of like parents, but you do focus on like a few important ones for the story. And yeah, I thought it was just so interesting, and it dives into so many different aspects of it. And yeah, the Yu family and how they interact with each other, and then with the exterior, because it's very much this bubble, them against the world, but then even inside of it, the mom feels alienated, and then the daughter feels alienated, and just it's just so interesting. Honestly, I have nothing but praise for this book, and I think it's this one, Stillborn, and Botanica Drama might be the three that I just highly recommend you pick up. So yes, these are the 16 books. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. I hope I didn't ramble too much. If you do want to know more about my thoughts or just want to discuss a book with me, you can put it in the comments. If you like this video, you can just give a little like, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.